Hey Volunteer Rugby Coach, let's get you coaching the fun, modern way. You gotta learn how now. Being a volunteer rugby coach is a great thing you do on so many levels. But sometimes it's difficult to turn up and deliver a great coaching session. It can get especially tricky if we get caught short for time and we arrive at rugby practice unprepared. That's when rugby coaching can go bad and we get stuck. Our players get bored and we become frustrated. I know all about this because I've been there myself. When this happens, it can make your gut churn and we feel embarrassed and we get defensive. That's not what we want. That's not what we've signed up for as good sort of volunteer rugby coaches. So how would it feel for you to never feel stuck or frustrated at rugby practice again, and to be able to quickly plan a killer rugby practice, just perfect for your team? And how good would it feel for you to easily and accurately communicate your coaching ideas to your players so your team is all on the same page? My experience tells me that clear communication is the hardest obstacle for us volunteer coaches to overcome. But when we get this right, clear communication is the most powerful thing we can do to have a successful team. And what about if you knew the 3 things to include in your rugby practice to make it fun, and the easy 2-step plan that will make you a modern rugby coach? If you want all this and more, you're in the right place. I've got a proven plan for you that will transform any volunteer rugby coach from feeling unconfident and overwhelmed to successfully coaching rugby and feeling great every time, all the time. A plan that will guide you to develop better rugby players, and a plan that promotes rugby fun. Right about now, you might be asking yourself, who am I and why should you listen to me? Hi, I'm John Leslie. I've been a volunteer rugby coach for almost 2 decades now. I've presented more than 300 rugby coaching demonstrations and workshops and holiday programs all over New Zealand and in Samoa and in Tonga too. I've studied, experimented, and I've learned so much about how to be a better rugby coach. I've gone deep. I've learned from every angle. I've learned from 6-year-old kids and international rugby coaches and thousands of real rugby people in between. So you should listen to me if you'd like to fast forward past all the mistakes I've made so you don't have to make them. And you should listen to me if you want to be a fun, modern rugby coach and if you want to develop better rugby players. I've got the experience and I've got the skills, and I'm excited to brain dump everything I've learned that worked for me, and I know that'll work for you too. Now before we move on, I want to be really clear about who I've made this rugby coaching stuff for. It's for volunteer rugby coaches that value their time and want to move fast, want to do a good job and be proud of it. So if that's you, stay tuned. You're going to love it, and so will your players. Now, I'm so excited to share with you a rugby coaching plan that's easy to action and gets amazing results. Let's get started. Now, rather than stacking you up with endless detail and confusing you, I've boiled down all of my rugby coaching experience to just 3 core principles and an easy 2-step plan to follow, so you can coach rugby the modern way. Now, if you want to have fun rugby practices and you want to be a fun rugby coach, which I highly recommend you do, you must include these 3 things in your next rugby practice. Number 1, you need to be easy to understand. This means being able to grab all of your players' attention so they know exactly what you want them to do. It's magic when this happens, but it's easier said than done. Picture this: 20 plus rugby kids after school, at practice, you're the coach, wind blowing, distractions all around, and you trying to explain with words and arm signals, running around like a headless chook, and trying to explain the choreography of your rugby symphony, or something like that. It's a tough gig. I know all too well about this firsthand. I've been there myself and I've failed. Clear communication to get players on our same page as us is the number 1 thing we need to have in our rugby practice if we want to be fun. Without clear communication, rugby practices are confusing, and when you confuse your players, you lose your players. Until now, being a clear communicator has been the most difficult thing for us volunteer coaches to achieve. So I've been working so hard to solve this problem for you, and I'm excited to say that we've got a solution that you're going to love. More about that coming soon. Don't miss it. Stay tuned. Now, the number 2 thing we need to have in our rugby practice for it to be fun is we need to make our rugby practice challenging. Challenging your rugby players is a smart strategy. When you challenge them, they have to concentrate. That's when best skill advancement is made. If your practice is too hard, players feel like failures and they lose confidence. If your practice is too easy, your players get bored. Choose drills and games that are not too easy, not too hard for your players. Find the level just right and challenge your players. And the third thing we need to include for fun is a little bit controversial. It's competition. It's controversial because competitions means we have winners and we have losers. Now, some people don't think this is a good idea. I think it's a fine idea, and I think it's real, not just in rugby but in life too. If we coach it correctly, competition builds resilience and excitement. To coach competition well, don't want to have the same players winning and losing all the time. We want to mix it up so our practice is truly competitive. We can make it competitive by including lots of games and matchups and races. So there it is. When you are 1, easy to understand, that means you communicate clearly, and 2, you make your rugby practice challenging, and 3, you make your rugby practice competitive, your players will have rugby fun and you'll be a fun rugby coach. But there's something disturbing. Some people think being a fun rugby coach is being soft, and that's not the way rugby should be. And back in my day, we used to run laps and our coach would get stuck into us and give us a boot up the players need to toughen up. Well, if that's you, or you know someone like that, here's the reality. Times have changed and so has rugby. The number 1 thing players want from rugby is fun. So get with it and give them a fun rugby experience. Don't bury your head in the sand. Coach rugby the fun way. In my next video, I'm going to show you some very cool stuff about coaching rugby the modern way. It's a simple 2-step plan that Tony Brown showed me. If you don't know who Tony Brown is, he's a progressive professional rugby coach. This simple 2-step plan works for professional rugby players and it works for the under 6s as well. It's proven and it works. Stay tuned, it's coming soon. Thanks for your time. Leave a comment on our Facebook page and tell me what you think about this video and what you want to learn more about. I'd love to know. When I do, I can serve you better.